All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's the first story from the Washington Times. FBI whistleblower. Counter-terrorism cases against alleged right-wing extremists, mostly entrapment.
Shock.
We all knew that. It doesn't matter that he's saying it because people on the left don't want to hear it, won't believe it, and they'll tell you the news report is fake news anyway. So we've learned nothing, and there's no new developments. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.
Crazy, right? That's good, yeah.
But I mean, look. With all due respect to this FBI agent, the reality is we do need this. And we need more of it. And so I really do want to commend this agent for coming out because we rag on the FBI a lot because of what the Washington field office has been doing, especially with Trump. But Donald Trump, I think, in his Hannity interview said that a lot of the FBI agents voted for him. I think that's true. I think that there's a lot of FBI agents who are good people but are too scared to speak up. So I can only say, first and foremost, James O'Keefe's got your back. I mean, you look at what Veritas does for their whistleblowers. They make sure that they're not going to be left high and dry. So I would only recommend anybody, not just the FBI, but anybody, that if you're witnessing illegal or unethical, actions at your company or whatever, within the confines of the law, blow the whistle. I mean, I'm not a fan of just like leakers for the sake of leaking. There's been a lot of people who have done that in the past and like, no. If you're there and dude is like, violate the Constitution, and you're like, no, and they're like, we will punish you. You'd be like, hey, someone help. Like, that's good.
But this guy went through the official channels and he was left high and dry because he was fired. He was kicked out of the FBI.
Officially suspended.
Officially suspended. But of course, he was also suspended because he said he wouldn't go on a raid that was specifically targeting January 6th individuals. And his allegations...
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but it was because they wanted a SWAT raid on a misdemeanor charge.
Exactly.
And he was like, whoa,
Unreal.
no,
Jeez.
dude.
Unreal.
Yeah. And what he's saying is absolutely mind-boggling. He's talking, I mean, not mind-boggling to us. Everyone knows this, but this is official confirmation of them cooking the books, exaggerating the threat of domestic terrorism, using overzealous January 6th investigations to harass conservatives and also innocent Americans. So this is a major big bombshell. He talks about how he himself was taken off human trafficking and child abuse cases to the point where he says there was real life effects where children were hurt because the FBI changed focuses from investigating human traffickers and child abusers to going after innocent people, according to him, that were just even around Washington, D.C. on January 6th.
But we do have a correction, and an apology. This is not the same FBI agent. There's two big stories right now. They say this accusation came from Kyle Serafin, an FBI agent of 6 years who was recently suspended by the Bureau. He was suspended, but there was another guy. You see that story? What's his name? Was it Stephen Friend?
Friend, yes. 37-year-old SWAT team member that refused to go on the SWAT raids.
That was that guy.
That's who I'm talking about right now.
Right.
Yep.
So this Kyle Serafin is a different FBI agent who was recently suspended. He's worked in multiple field offices in counterterror and conducted investigations of alleged domestic extremism. So we have two different FBI agents who are outright like, this is unconstitutional. Both got suspended. I'm willing to bet there's more. But good for these men. These are these are the heroes who are. Look, I think a lot of people get into law enforcement for the right reasons, but the systems themselves are fairly broken. Yeah.
Yes.
So if you're like, I'm going to come out, expose this, and that means I'm out, then good. That's what needs to happen.
Just really quickly before I give it to you guys, the New York Post is reporting that there's over 20 FBI whistleblowers, and they're talking about, especially with this Friend guy, he's talking about specifically the FBI post de facto designating a grassy area outside of the Capitol as a restricted zone when it wasn't a restricted zone in order, of course, to prosecute innocent civilians that were there on January 6th. And this is huge, massive allegations that I think are worth listening to. And the fact that this Friend guy was fired is absolutely a huge misjustice.
Well, I think number one, just think about being a normal FBI agent who wants to do their job. And you see what's happened to the Bureau and the Justice Department writ large over the last 5-6 years. I mean, how can you not be outraged? I mean, we have the President of the United States right now. Remember that speech with the red lighting and everything, and he's calling half the country domestic terrorists, and these MAGA Republicans are trying to destroy America.
And then 2 weeks later, a guy runs over a kid in an SUV for being a Republican extremist.
Right. And that's, I mean, the timing is not random. Because we have an election coming up here, in 40 odd days. And you've got the President of the United States saying that. You've got the FBI raiding the former president's house. Now you've got the AG in New York, suing the president and his kids. All of this is political theater, right? To try to mobilize their base ahead of an election. And I mean, not just that, go all the way back to James Comey. right? You want to talk about entrapment? I mean, that guy went to President-elect Donald Trump and said, congratulations, Mr. President-elect. Hey, did you urinate on some Russian hookers? Because there's this dossier, and look, I mean, this is salacious stuff, but I just want to share this with you for your own good, And then what did he do? He walked downstairs and he got into his limo and he typed up all the notes, right? Because he was trying to entrap the president. He wanted to see how the president would react to it. There's no difference between that and this.
And I mean, you look at the priorities of the FBI at this point, where they're spending more time going to school board meetings, trying to call parents as domestic. Like, anyone basically who opposes this regime is a domestic terrorist. Joe Biden, in that speech, basically said, if you oppose me, you're a radical domestic terrorist. So, exactly like Tim was saying, is you end up with these cases where you have a liberal who just runs over a kid for being a Republican, but that's intentional. The first step for them in this process is to dehumanize that out group, right?
Well, that's the path towards genocide. That list we saw go viral, right?
Yes. And also Steve Friend, he's specifically also saying that FBI domestic terrorism cases are being opened up on innocent American citizens who were, quote, nowhere near the Capitol on January 6th based on, quote, anonymous tips and Facebook spying on people's private messages. So the fact that people are getting raided, the fact that people are getting swatted for just expressing messages that were political is such a nasty thing that the FBI would be partaking in, that of course is destroying any semblance of any form of justice, which of course they have long since forgotten what it even means, in my opinion.